Okay, so this door, as you can see for that aperture there, is a very old front door. What we're going to do is we're going to remake that door to fit into that hole there. I tried to strip it, but sadly it's covered in pitch underneath, and it took so long to strip, and you can see it's got horrible dings in it, and it's covered in just a bit too much character for my taste. So I am going to make this door. Okay, so what we've now done is chop these to be the outside vertical rails. That's the central rail. That is the very top style. That's the second but top style, and these the middle and the bottom styles. And then over here we've got the wood for the panels. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this up. Sorry, I'm going to glue this up into two groups of 4 and then sideways, so they'll make the panels. So this is going to make up just one of the panels on one side. So what I've done is I've alternated the grain. So you've got the grain going you go that way, that way, that way, and that way. So these are 4 boards that are going to get glued together, and you can see there's one of the clamps currently at the moment. And actually, I have to say that if I look at it down here lengthways, it stayed remarkably vertical. And you know, there are definite lips I can feel on both sides of it, but I don't really care about that because I can sand all that down and it'll add character to it. Okay, so these are at the clamps now, and as you can see, if you get close to them, there's little lips there. So the best thing to do is to actually clamp this down, and it's important that you clamp it down because it makes the round orbital sander way more effective. And then you can put some real weight on it, and it feels a bit wavy, but it's incredibly smooth. And considering it's a panelled and old Victorian door that I'm making, it'll be perfect. So I've just got a bit of sanding to do now. Now it's important that I get these panels sanded before I start cutting the rails and styles, because the thickness of this will determine the groove that's going to go all the way down the rails. Okay, so that's been done with 80 grit, and that's been done with 120. And they don't look particularly different, but when this goes down to 240, or when they all go down to 240, you'll see quite a difference. But you can see now that they're very smooth, there's no gaps at all. This is just a bit of staining in the wood itself, but you can see that there is just no lines now. It's almost like you're looking down one piece of wood. So that there are the rails and styles for the door, and they're all laid out, they're all cut. That's the 20cm bottom one, that's the middle one where the mortar slot gets attached. That is sort of, I suppose, the upper middle, which is actually 10, and that one is 8, which is the same width as the sides. And that are the same width, so you've got a symmetrical cross in the middle of it, which is mimicking the old door. And then over there are the 2 panels that we've made up, and these have been sanded down both to 240, so we've got these lovely panels. Now the thing to do is to find out what the average thickness of these panels is, and we've got to take, I guess, the thickest of that, really, or the average thickest of that, because I can always amend that thickness slightly with sanding in particular places, and then cut grooves to fit all this together, because this has to be jointed together, so we need this to be nice and solid. And then obviously these panels are going to be recessed into these rails and styles. So it's time for the table saw. So this is the table saw. This is a DW745, and you can see if I go in close here, I've got 3 blades stacked together. And if you look down there, that's the arbor nut, and there is that nut is fully supported. The tips never touch. The tips are never touching. And that gives me a nice big chunky sort of like 7mm kerf, which is what we're going to use. And that really does hold. That's a very, very strong joint. Looks good as well, doesn't it? And you can see that it's perfectly lined up on both sides, and it has to be. It can't be anything but, because we keep turning the work round. So we cut one side, flip round, cut the other side, cut one side, cut the other side. So it has to, by definition, be in the centre. That has to be in the centre, and that has to be in the centre. These are all the laterals, the the stiles, the laterals. The Americans call them rails, I'm not sure why, but I call the long ones on the sides of the rails. And in order to make sure that these are exactly the same, I've stacked them up, and I've put a T-square against the back of them. I've cut all those ends flush, and I need to cut all of these so they're exactly 5.25 millimeters. So I'm going to hold them all together and cut through, and then making sure that this lot doesn't move, just removing the stacks until I can work my way through to the bottom, and then that way I should get the most accurate cut. At the end of a very long day, you can see how the door is put together. That's the technique there. So that is how that's fitted to that, that's fitted to that, and so on and so forth. And then these panels will fit into those grooves there. Like that. And I have to say, with a bit of a sand, that will look absolutely Habilis. It's looking good, looking good. And actually, I'm not going to change the setup on that. That's for cutting out the tenons. So the depth between there and the outside of the blade determines the depth of the tenon, 25 millimeters. And obviously the side, the height as well. So, looking good. We've got the basic door together today. Tomorrow it's putting the panels in and gluing it.